Hello and welcome to Sovereign Ideas. My name is Rachael Hocking. I'm a proud Warlpiri woman and I'm a presenter at National Indigenous Television. You're about to hear from four pretty deadly young people who are going to tell you a little bit about how they got to where they are today. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce Yvonne Weldon to give a welcome to country.
Hello, sisters and brothers. I stand before you as a sovereign Wiradjuri woman. I have never ceded my rights. My name is Yvonne Weldon and I am from Cowra here in New South Wales. I'm from the waters of the Clare, also known as the Lachlan, and of the Murrumbidgee rivers. I am the elected chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, who are the cultural authority under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act for the land that I am on. I pay homage to the people of the Eora Nation, who suffered the first impact on behalf of all Aboriginal nations. We're meeting here in a man-made monument on the edge of the traditional owners' impressive waterways. On these shorelines, the unwavering matriarch, Barangaroo, the Camaragal woman, the skilled fisherwoman who honed her craft and shared it amongst her clan and her nation. The boundaries of the traditional owners are not defined by the hand or by the pen, but through the natural landscapes of the earth. The Eora Nation's country covers the Hawkes River in the north, the Nepean in the west, and the Georges River in the south. On behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, the elders, and the members, I welcome everyone to the land of the Gadigal. I acknowledge the Gadigal people, whose spirits and ancestors will always remain with these lands, our Mother Earth. Our people have practiced our traditions for thousands of years and endless generations. One tradition they've shared in various forms across Australia is a welcome to country. It is more than just words, it is a spiritual process. By honouring their ancestors' footsteps, we are all walking in, continuing the practice of the many generations before us to the many generations to come, where our sharing and our trading of our resources, our knowledge and our traditions has been my people's way of life since time began. We traded and shared amongst our nations, our tribes and our clans that have existed here for over 60,000 years, traded for necessity and not for empires. Our songlines and our customs have sustained us and they're embedded into the core of this nation. The First Nations of this country are the oldest living culture of the world. So as we're all gathered here, let us all remember and acknowledge the many warriors that created pathways for all of us, the ones recognised and the ones we've never heard of. As we've moved through the changes from our world to yours to become ours together, it's important to keep our stories alive, not just because they should be heard, but because they need to be. Our stories aren't myths. They are this land's history that has been passed on from one generation to the next. There have been many lessons learned at our expense and our devastation. They should and must be acknowledged, not out of a guilt, but to listen, learn and to come together, to commence a healing and creating a future for all. So don't live regretting what we should have done, but create the legacy of what must be done. As you connect, learn and share, today, tomorrow and beyond, don't lose sight of the important work that still needs to be done to bring my people, your people and all our peoples together. In these times of this pandemic, don't let the social distance make us socially absent. We must maintain physical distancing, but not creating barriers to our social connections. So whether it's through your mob or your work, creating an inclusion, an acceptance and a resilience. As we ponder over recent times, think about the difference you are making today that will become the milestones of the future, all our futures. So let us all draw upon my people's spirits as we continue on our journey. May my people's spirits walk with you and guide you as we strive forward for us all. Again, on behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, welcome to Gadigal land. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne, as always, for giving an absolutely beautiful welcome to country. And thank you to the traditional owners, the Gadigal, for hosting us. And I would also like to acknowledge any of the mobs from the land that you're watching this from today. I acknowledge their elders, past and present, and I acknowledge you if you're a blackfella tuning in. Sovereign Ideas is part of the 22nd Biennale of Sydney and it's supported by the University of Sydney. The Biennale is one of the leading international contemporary art events. And this year, the artistic director was Wiradjuri man Brooke Andrew. The 2020 Biennale was an artist and a First Nations-led endeavour that brought together more than 100 artists, scientists, academics and thinkers from all around the world. It's pretty deadly. As I mentioned before, my name is Rachael. I'm a presenter at National Indigenous Television. I'm a journalist, but I like to call myself a storyteller. The coolest thing about my job is that it's in my DNA. And if you're a black fella, it's in your DNA too. We have inherited such a long line of storytelling from tens of thousands of years of oral traditions. Whether I chose this profession or not, I'd still be part of a continuous line of people sharing knowledge through the simple act of listening and speaking. And we're all here today to listen to some pretty deadly young people, so I'm pretty sure I should get underway introducing them to you. To my left, Corey Tutt is an Indigenous mentor and STEM champion. He's the founder of Deadly Science, an initiative that provides science books and resources to remote schools in Australia. And Corey is also the 2020 New South Wales Young Australian of the Year. Nice one, brother.
Oh, thank you.
Lille Madden is a proud Arrernte, Bundjalung and Kalkadoon woman from Gadigal country. She previously worked at Taronga Conservation Society in the Australian Fauna Precinct. And Lily is currently the Sydney coordinator for Seed Mob, the Indigenous Youth Climate Network. Some pretty cool jobs there. Emily Johnson is a Barkindji and Waka Waka woman who lives in Sydney. She's the talented young illustrator behind the concept art for the projected animations in the stage production Blackie Blackie Brown, the Traditional Owner of Death. Probably the coolest stage production name I've ever come across. She's also found fame with her TikTok handle where she unpacks racist stereotypes, and I can't wait to hear more about that in just a moment. Ryan Clapham is a rapper and drummer with Filipino and Aboriginal heritage who goes by the stage name Dobby. He's a member of the Murrawari Republic in Wilmaringal. He released a very powerful track earlier this year with Barkindji Malyampa rapper Barker. Now this track, if you haven't heard it, was in response to the global Black Lives Matter movement, and it's called I Can't Breathe. If you have not heard it, you have to check it out. It's one of the deadliest tracks I've heard this year, brother.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So as you're about to hear, each of our guests have had very different pathways to get to where they are. They all do some pretty different things, but very deadly things. And I think it's really important that we share this yarn with you right now because it has been a crazy year. Your lives have been so disrupted in ways that no one could have predicted. COVID-19 has changed how many of you thought that you would be doing your final years of study. Honestly, I actually think that any young person out there right now should just be proud of themselves for surviving this year. Good on you. Like, you got through it. That is such an achievement in and of itself. These panellists are going to give you an idea of the many different paths you can take towards doing something that you love. And we're going to kick off with Corey to my left. Corey, you talk about science, and when you talk about it, you make me interested. Like, I didn't grow up as a science maths person, but you make people engaged in something that not everyone has a knack for. When did you first start to get interested in science?
Well, just like you were saying with the storylines, blackfellas have a natural epiphany with science. We were the first astronomers, world's first chemists, world's first forensic scientists. If you are a white fella and you get stuck in the bush, the first people that come out to get you are the blackfellas, first forensic scientists. And as a kid, I was always obsessed with nature. I was always picking up lizards. I was always picking up snakes, which was a bit naughty. But, my love of science really developed from there. And I think kids are the best scientists, and especially young people, because we're always asking the questions. If you've ever asked why the sky is blue or the grass is green, they are science questions. My love of science really grew. And now I get to share that with other young people, which is great.
It's really cool that you talk about it in terms of, being interested in animals and things that every child is interested in, but you might not connect automatically to being something scientific.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, for a long time, the conversation's been sort of tied towards you have to be really smart, you have to be, a white fella in a lab with a fancy coat. But science is all around us. If you are asking questions about the environment and you're a young person, you should be able to ask those questions and find those answers. And I'm going to use a timeless quote here. Science equals hope and education is freedom. And the hope is, at the moment, we want a COVID vaccine. So we're looking towards science for the answers. But science is all around us, and I encourage everyone to find it.
Yeah, totally. Now, speaking of animals and nature, Lily, you had a really cool first job, or one of your first jobs after finishing high school. You worked at Taronga Zoo, where you became a bird keeper. That's crazy. How did that happen?
Well, I guess just, as a kid, I've always been fascinated and loved animals. And I guess one of my first memories was always sitting on the couch with Pop, and we'd watch, a documentary on National Geographic about some animal out there in the wilderness, and that really sparked my interests. And so, I was like, got out of high school, and I was just really not sure what to do. But then I was like, I have to follow my interests and follow what I love. And that's when I found that there was a traineeship at Taronga.
Wow.
And it was a 2-year traineeship, and here we go. It just opened up this whole world to me, and
So you didn't go knocking on the zoo door or anything? You saw it advertised online, or how did that come about?
Well, my grandparents, they're, so precious to me, and they're so good, and my grandmother actually, she took me, and she took me down to Redfern, and we went to one of these Aboriginal job agencies, and they were like, oh, there's these traineeships being held at Taronga.
Wow.
We want to get along, and then went for an interview, and got the uniform on, got the boots, looked like a deadly keeper, and I was real proud, and
Bit of an explorer. Did they get birds flying at you straight away? Like, do they chuck you straight in the deep end and, catching them with your gloves on?
Well, initially, like, you think, I work with, I might be working with lions or tigers or something like that, but then when I got put on with birds, I was like, okay. All right. Okay, fine.
Not as deadly.
Not as deadly, but then I grew that appreciation, and there would be, when you had them on your hand, they came up to you and you were looking at them, and you're like, you gain that connection and that appreciation, and it was something that's really special, You don't know what you can do or what you like until you try it.
Yeah. And I have to ask you more later on about wedge-tail eagles, because they're my totem, and the fact that you've been able to be up close with them is pretty special. Mm-hmm. Now, Emily, you are very talented. You're interested in visual art, but that started at a really young age. How did you bring creativity into your life post-high school and once you left study? How did you make sure that creativity was the driving force in your life?
Well, I think I had a very common experience of, graduating and then signing up. I actually tried to get into medicine, and then I guess fortunately now I didn't get in, and then I had to rethink, that was kind of being funneled into that opportunity, which is great, and then I had to think, what do I actually want to do? And I'm very creative, and that's always been my hobby. So I enrolled at Sydney University in an arts degree, and then the rest is history from there.
Did you refine the passion?
Yeah, and it kind of gave the visual art that I was doing a theory behind it, and all of the prejudice and the concepts that I was creating could have that context, and it's just made me grow as an artist.
We're going to hear about some of the cool things that you do with your artistry in a little bit. But Ryan, you started your musical journey pretty young. Was it around 7 that you started classical piano?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. Tell me about the journey from then to becoming drummer, rapper extraordinaire, Dobby.
I started off on piano. I had one of those little keyboard light-up pianos where the correct key turns red, and that was really intriguing to me because I just followed it along, and certain songs like "Let It Be" by the Beatles or "The Entertainer," and I was just hooked on this, and it became that passion for me to keep playing music, and I played piano from then on, and then I got more into drums in high school, and all throughout this I had such a real deep connection to hip hop, especially. You know, the story, like you were saying, like these storytellers, like I hear it, you know, in so many of the musicians that I heard as a kid. And I wanted to do something with music after high school. And so I applied for the jazz degree at the Sydney Con. I actually didn't get in, but I think, you know, things turn out the right way in a way, because I ended up getting to do a Bachelor of Music at UNSW, which allowed me to sort of be the person that I am. So sometimes you don't really necessarily go on that road, and then you kind of find yourself, like what you're saying, Emily. Like I really resonate with that.
Yeah, that's so deadly. And Emily, as I was just saying, like you as an artist do so many cool things, you know, stage productions, but you also have a bit of a side career taken off at the moment. You're on TikTok. How did that happen? When did you first decide, I'm going to post a video on this platform which is taking off? And why do you think so many of our young mob just have flocked to that platform?
Well, I initially joined just to watch the other TikToks people were making. And then, you know, as with any social media, there is a darker side to it. And I did notice, you know, the comments and a lot of racism on the app. And then that's when I decided to do a comedic twist on it and start breaking down those stereotypes and making clips in my spare time. And then, yeah, people are following along and supporting what I do.
What's the response been? Like, how many followers you got?
Oh, we just hit 45K, so
Whoa.
I'm very happy about it.
That's something to be more than just happy about. That's incredible. Do you find that with TikTok, more of our young mob are finding ways to be outspoken and almost like an activist platform in some ways?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's all curated by you. It's, you know, we get to talk about the specific politics or issues or the environment and the current events that are occurring in our communities, whereas it can kind of get ignored by mainstream media. So I think it's a really good platform for that.
Yeah, it's great because if you don't feel like something's getting covered properly in the news cycle, you can speak your truth here and put it out anyway. I love that about social media and how connected it's made our mobs. Now, Lily, when you left high school, what were some of the challenges that you were facing to get to where you are now?
Well, I think one common thing is getting a good score in your ATAR, because most of the time you're told that, the next step is to go to university and then you can start your career in whatever you like. And for me, I was never quite interested in the subjects that we studied in school because I just wanted to be out in nature and with animals and, exploring and things like that. So that's kind of what I, really honed in on, and I was like, okay, somehow I can do this and, use this to my advantage. And so even though I didn't get the greatest score, in high school, I was like, surely there's a way, there's pathways that we can take that doesn't have to be university. And that's when I just went and, was looking around and searching around, and that's when I kind of came across, the opportunity at Taronga. And I was really fortunate to be able to be successful. And
do you think a lot of our young mob out there know that it's not about that number, and that if they don't get the number that they want or that they're told they need to get, that they'll be fine and that there are other pathways?
Yeah, I think so. And, I think this day and age, I think that's more acceptable because there's so many amazing people that, around me that haven't gone to university, and that there are those different ways that you can do what you love.
Yeah, just chase your passion, hey?
Yeah.
Corey,
Exactly.
your pathway has been quite different to Lily's. What have some of the challenges been that you've had getting to New South Wales Young Australian of the Year?
Well, to be honest with you, I was told at year 10 that I wanted to be a zookeeper just like Lee, and I was told by my careers advisor to stick to a trade. And that was based on my upbringing and where I came from. But
was that meant in a negative way, as in they were looking down on?
It was meant to do in a way, so stick to a trade because we want you to get a job and leave school. But
right.
I was a bit of a rat bag, and I left school at 16 and I went all the way to Western Australia and became a zookeeper and worked in a wildlife sanctuary. And I realised that as soon as I got there, I had responsibilities. So no longer was I looking after a 16-year-old me, I was looking after joeys and animals. But it proved to me that, you know, sometimes the greatest limitations in life are those we put on ourselves. And, you know, we have these preconceptions that, you know, other people put on us, but until we challenge them and, you know, be what we can see, then, you know, we need to overcome them. And that was some of the obstacles I faced as a young person.
Did you felt like you were starting to become more sure of yourself as that journey continued and more confident in what you wanted to be?
Yeah, you know, and it changes, you know, and like you might start off wanting to be a zookeeper, but then once you do it, you might want to do something else. So I guess with my journey, I wanted to be a zookeeper. I wanted to, you know, pick up the blue-tongued lizard and tell you all about them and tell you a million different things. But now I've drafted into this role where I want young people to feel that.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell me about it. And I want you to tell me what you're passionate about. And there's one thing that all of us have in common here, and that's purpose. Purpose and passion. And if you've got purpose and passion, then you're already a hell of a lot further than everyone else.
That's really beautiful. I think it's a really nice reminder to know that you're something greater than you, a bigger reason for you being here. But we also have purpose from our ancestors as well. You know, they put us here, and we have so much to be grateful for. For you, Ryan, culture is such a big part of what you do, and you bring it into everything that you do. How has it shaped your journey?
Oh, immensely. Being able to express myself and my identity and culture through music is such an amazing privilege and a great opportunity to educate as well as learn myself, you know. And it's always felt like that feeling of identity and what everyone's saying on the panel, I agree with 1,000%. You don't necessarily, success doesn't look like a 90 ATAR for some people. Sometimes it's going to Western Australia, and sometimes it's, you know, like sometimes it's just digging deep in a beat and making music, and that's the purpose for me personally, is feeling that connection there, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to put it. Lily, I'm really interested in the work that you do with Seed Mob, because the environment and country and land is such a big part of being a blackfella. How, for young mob out there who are maybe interested in that fight for country, how can they get involved, and what is involved when you do decide to take up a fight do you call yourself an activist, as a climate justice activist?
Well, like you said, I think it's one thing that we've done for, you know, tens of thousands of years. So I would consider myself just like anyone else, you know. The older that I got, I felt that sense of responsibility to care for, you know, to care for country, care for people. And so that's how I, got into Seed Mob, because I was like, not only do we have to look after the plants and animals themselves, but the environment in full, like how we define country, which all of those fall under. And so, like Seed Mob, it's a group made up of young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people working towards climate justice. And, you know, climate justice, there's no climate justice without First Nations justice. And so what I would say to young people is that there's so many ways that you can get involved, you know, because, you know, the two overarching words that are becoming ever present today are climate change, and that can be very overwhelming. But my advice to everyone is that you can do whatever you like. Say, like Ryan, you know, making this amazing song with Barker, Emily doing these TikToks, educating people, and then Corey here, you know, with everything that he does and engages within community. So if you're an artist, you know, you can make a sign. If you're a photographer, you could take a photo, you know. It's just all these things, and social media is like one of those platforms that you can start off with.
And that's where we see it, hey? I mean, and also, like, it goes from social media to the streets, because some of the biggest strikes we've seen in the last couple of years have been those student climate strikes, organised by young people who give a damn about the world they're going to leave behind, which is beautiful, I think. For you, Emily, I mean, we get to where we are because of the people around us as well. And I know you've had some pretty cool people in your life. You've worked with amazing people in the industry. How important is it to have a relationship with someone who you can call a mentor, and how important have they been to you?
Well, I think it's, you know, we passed down culturally as well as professionally, and knowing that you don't have to do it all on your own. Like, there is always going to be a mentor there or someone in a community who has, you know, like that cheesy saying, has, what is it? Walked so you could run.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
it.
and don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to know everything. And whatever pathway you go in, there's always going to be, you know, a big sister or a big brother, an auntie or an uncle there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually, I love that, because wherever we go, we kind of have mobs, don't we?
Yep.
We're surrounded. I mean, I'm surrounded by you fellas right now. We've been hanging out all day and I feel like you're my best mates. We are fast running out of time, but I think it's really important to kind of leave some messages for this generation, this year of students who have been absolutely flogged, really. I mean, I couldn't imagine graduating with COVID-19. And like I said before, just to have survived this year is so incredible. So for you, Ryan, what would you say to any young fellas out there who are watching and just need that pep talk?
I think, you know, I would like to extend what you said, Rachel, you know, celebrate the fact that you're able to keep going and you made it through this year and you're making it through this time. So I would say when it comes to your career or whatever direction you think you want to take or are stressed to take, embrace that journey is what I would say, because that, for me, that direction changed so many times, and that's okay. Yeah. Like, knowing that that's normal is okay.
I love that.
Embrace where you're going.
You are not stuck on one pathway for life.
Yeah, that's it.
Corey, what would you say?
I would say, you know, congratulations to all the young people out there that have gotten through this, you know, really difficult year, and you guys are killing it, and you've got 65,000 years of science and culture and history behind you, and you know, reach out, talk to people. You know, don't be scared to reach out and ask for advice. And this road is not a straight one. It has many twists and turns, and just embrace it.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty windy and unpredictable. Lily, what would you say?
I would say to follow your gut and lead with your heart, you know. And like, as Emily said, you know, you just keep who you love and who you care for close, because they're going to be your rock, you know, as well as yourself. And so then you can do whatever, you know, you put your mind to. So, yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong if you follow your heart, right? Yeah. What about you, Emily?
I think it's good to focus, you know, on excelling in academia if that's what you're passionate about, but it's also important to enrich yourself, you know, as a whole person and as a cultural person, and you're going to have diverse experiences, whichever pathway you take. But yeah, being a scholar is not your entire life.
Amen. Put the books down for a bit, hey? Chill out. Thank you so much to my deadly panel. I think we could have probably yarned for like 2 hours. So next time we'll try and make this a bit longer, eh? And next time we'll try and have live audience here. Yeah. Shout out to all you mob. But to the audience that is watching from wherever you are, thanks for joining us. I hope that you've gotten something from these wonderful, amazing people who have been so generous with their stories. I know I've learnt a heap today. But before we go, we're going to be spoilt by one pretty deadly performance. It's time for Dobby to take us away.
This one's called That's Not Me. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Dobby. Yo, Dobby coming hard with the blackout. Redfern all the way to Blacktown. I see you and the mob can't too. Black fellas and fellas, I'm about to rap now. Pressure be following like a black cloud. Luckily we never gonna back down. I say it all again for the back row. Luckily we never gonna back down. I can make it happen, I'm a catalyst. Manifest, manifest, manifest. Lately I've been working for the amethyst. Competition's over my happiness. Winner, 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 what a sure thing. Some days get a little bored then. They never think you're funny when they get me all the money. We forget to Piccadilly on the board game. Keep it on locked like a padlock B. Took away the key, put the latch on me. Breathing in deep and attach on 3. Press down and I'm back on B. How many weeks till my tracks compete? It's gonna take a while, better have your tea. It's a little unclear when I look up in the mirror, but I'm here, right? Wait a minute, that's not me. Yeah, that's not me. Juggling my jealousy, that's not me. I let the pressure get to me, that's not me. Now I'm walking around the city yelling, that's not me. Am I going by the wayside? That's not me. Give up in the meantime, that's not me. I let it all go by, that's not me. Gotta do what I've been doing now. Full sort of like, women like, get the mic, bitter like, lemon lime, kinda like Vegemite, hit 'em with a hook, like Mike when I'm on a mic, they and I J-Lo, they would never get it right. Need a mediator if we gotta be together, mind of the media, make it a little better. Put away the pitter patter in and bend a wicked belly up and I make cake if I can take a dip into the peanut butter. I'm popping off in the mouth, I feel like calling them out, I got a feeling attack, so I'm aggro. Thinking of good for nothing, you're trying to push in a button and make a brother react like a dad joke. If anybody complain, it's all on my energy, getting in a debate with them. Then they get a conceited look in the face, they never wanted to yawn, I bet that they get the game and I'll play with them. I see you look down on me, but can you just back off please? I'ma play tic-tac-toe till I get my goal, till the crown's on me. Yo, what do you think I cost? How can I get that job? Why do you need my name? You just wanna tick that box? But you know what, that's not me. I'm not a puppet, y'all, that's not me. Gotta get my thing together, I know that's not me. Forget I better where I am, brother, that's not me. Yeah, I'm gone by the wayside. Will I give up in the meantime? Will I let it all go by? Gotta do what I've been doing now, doing what I'm doing while I... Ha, ha. Yeah, yeah. Get my thing together, man, that's not me. Wait a minute, man, that's not me. Get my thing together, man, that's not me. Wait a minute, man, that's not me. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Am I gone by the wayside? Will I give up in the meantime? Will I let it all go by? Thank you so much. This one here is called Dipi Yuan Pachilinya. In Nambar language, that translates to the bird names himself. And this bird I recorded in Brewarrina, northwest New South Wales, Nambar country, where my grandmother was born and raised, Mary Shearer. 1 hour north is Wilmaringal, Mudawari country, my ancestral ties. And that bird is either a magpie or a currawong. I might need Lily to help me out there. Dippy Yuan Pachilinya, singing his name throughout the riverina. Kaya Lanato Yonko Yunato Baku. I think Bayami telling us he can see ya. Dippy Yuan Pachilinya, home to the Nuno, the continuing dream. I Namba, where one you Walla Rida, Camilla Roy, Mudawari, Bakanji, Wokamari, the Barabinya. Dippy Yuan Pachilinya, singing his name throughout the riverina. I see the Kookaburra and Malayan, Dinawan. I know the Dinawan is spiritual creature. Dippy Yuan Pachilinya, I see the Munda gotta come out the river. And they callin' wild way at the bar when I watch him transform like the butterfly in a caterpillar. I got no confidence in our current leader. I'm sick of suffering, smirk, smothering emphysema. Towering flames, howling church. The entire East Coast from Cairns all the way down to Bega. Listen to a different thinker, cause somebody trying to give you the bigger picture. And take what I learned to understand that the lessons in the rivers in the land, our spirit teacher.